So the ICC World Test Championship Finals race is now in its last leg. We know that there are 3 series which will determine who will be the 2 finalists heading into the June 7th encounter at the Oval. Australia are all but there. India are also all but there. Remember, this India versus Australia 4 Test series is a virtual preview to the World Test Championship final. Now, no predictor, no analysis, no any other kind of permutations and combinations. The equations here are very, very simple now. 3 series, what will be the outcome of those 3 series? It all depends on that. Australia, India, Sri Lanka, South Africa, and very, very surprisingly, even West Indies and England, they also have a very faint outside chance. What does each team need to do in order to seal their place in the ICC World Test Championship final? So here are the permutations and combinations, and remember, all these calculations have been done without the help of any predictor, without the help of anything, pure simple mathematics, and also with a disclaimer that none of the teams in all of the 3 series will incur any kind of penalty points. So with that, let us get to the straight basis what each team needs to do. So the current table prior to February 9th, 2023 is like this. Australia 75.56 percentage points, India with 58.93, Sri Lanka with 53.3. Realistically, only these 3 teams can fight amongst themselves for the place in the final. South Africa, England and West Indies all have an outside chance, but now they need other results going their way. Sri Lanka, India and Australia, their fate is in their own hands. So, what does each team need to do? India versus Australia, as things stand today, it's a preview to the WTC final. Sri Lanka, they will be playing 2 tests against New Zealand away. So they are the only team that can be the dark horse or can dent India's aspirations. South Africa, West Indies and England have faint outside chance. I will explain how. So the first major equation is, what must Australia do? If they draw or win 1 test against India, they have sealed their spot. 1 draw or 1 win. If they do that, then they have secured their spot in the World Test Championship final. They'll be the first team to do it officially. But if Australia lose 0-4 to India and Sri Lanka win 2-0 against New Zealand, then Australia are eliminated from the World Test Championship final. It can happen because if they lose 4 tests and Sri Lanka somehow get to 2 wins, India's percentage points is boosted close to 70. Australia's will decrease to below 60, and that is how they will be eliminated. Simple equation. Australia must avoid a 4-0 whitewash against India. If they win or draw 1 test, they are through to the final. Now the key concern is, what must India do? Remember, all these teams, Australia, India, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, West Indies, South Africa, they are all playing the last test of the series in this World Test Championship cycle. So what must India do? The first obvious equation is, if Sri Lanka win 2-0, India must win 3-0 or 4-0. If they win 2-0, 2 matches are drawn, will not be enough because they will not have a percentage points hike. Sri Lanka, on the other hand, if they win 2-0, they get to 61.1. India, if they only win 2-0, they will not be able to do it. If Sri Lanka wins only 1 test, only 1 of them, India must win series by any margin or 2-2 draw. 1-0, 2-0, 2-2, 2-1, 3-1, 4-0, 3-0. Any of those series results is more than enough for India to secure qualification to the final. But the series, the Border Gavaskar Trophy series, cannot be a 1-1 draw for India. Why is that? If the Border Gavaskar Trophy series ends with a 1-1 series result, then India's percentage points will dip to 55.09. Now, if that happens, then South Africa's PCT will go to 55.56 if they beat West Indies 2-0. And India around 55.09. Sri Lanka's PCT will be 61.1 if they beat New Zealand 2-0. But if they even win 1-0 against New Zealand, then their percentage points will be 55.56, level with South Africa. And so that is why if the series is 1-1 and even if it is 2-0, then it will be a major problem for India. So they have to win 2 or more tests. If Sri Lanka wins 2-0, India has to win the series 3-0 or 4-0. That is the clear-cut mathematical equation that is there. Because percentage points, number of points accumulated divided by the number of points that can be available. So 12 tests if you have played, you will get 144 points in the entire cycle. If you have only accumulated 90 points, 90 divided by 144 into 100. Example. What must Sri Lanka do now? Simple equation for them. Win 2-0. If they beat New Zealand 2-0, then and only then they will have a chance with 61.1 percentage points. However, if Sri Lanka win 2-0 and India wins 3-0, 4-0 or 3-1, Sri Lanka are eliminated. It won't be enough for them because the percentage points gap is about 5. Overcoming that, they'll have to win 2. India, if they win 2, then they will be in slight bit of trouble. If they win 1-0, for Sri Lanka, even if they win 1-0, Australia have to beat India in the series. Then and only then they will enter the final. Otherwise, 2-0 is the equation. If Sri Lanka wins 2-0, Australia beats India, even if Sri Lanka wins 1-0, it will be enough for them. What must South Africa do? For all practical purposes, we are thinking that they are eliminated because at best they can get to 55.56 percentage points. For that to happen, they must first beat the West Indies 2-0. As plain and simple as that. Need India versus Australia series to end 1-1. As I had said, if it ends 1-1, India's percentage points dips to 55.09. SL must win only 1 test versus New Zealand because if they win only 1, South Africa win 2, their percentage points hikes to 55.56. That is how it is. So, South Africa very clear 2-0 against the West Indies. If they don't, they are out. Very surprisingly, West Indies and England are still very much in contention, but it is a very outlandish chance. Why is that? For England, if they have to make it to the World Test Championship final, these scenarios have to come true. Australia must beat India 4-0. West Indies beats South Africa 1-0. And New Zealand beats SL 2-0. Because SL's percentage points will then dip to 38. India's will dip to below 46. And West Indies beat RSA. It won't make a dent in their percentage point cycle. Because England currently have a percentage points of 46.97. India's will dip to below 46 if they lose 4-0 against Australia. So that is why West Indies also 1-0, it still won't be enough for them. That is why. So for England, it's a very simple equation. Australia must beat India 4-0, West Indies beats South Africa 1-0 and New Zealand beats Sri Lanka 2-0. What about the West Indies? Win against South Africa 2-0, that's an away tour. Australia beats India 4-0 and New Zealand beat SL 2-0. Simple equation, but Australia beating India 4-0 in India is a tall task indeed, because even in their finest, they have never whitewashed India. They have never done that. India, on the other hand, have whitewashed Australia 4-0 in 2013. So for England and West Indies, for all practical reasons, they are eliminated from the World Test Championship cycle. Mathematically, they are still very slim chances of their survival. So the 3 teams, Australia, India, Sri Lanka, only these 3 teams are there in the equation. South Africa with a slight outside chance. So simple equation, if India wins the series 3-0 or 4-0, Provided Sri Lanka wins 2-0 in New Zealand, then India are through to the World Test Championship cycle. If Sri Lanka doesn't win, then India versus Australia on June 7th at the Oval. It's as simple as that. For Australia, one draw or one win, they are through. If Australia lose 0-4, but if Sri Lanka don't beat New Zealand, then Australia are through. Then and only then it will be possible. So thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this ICC World Test Championship explainer. Remember, this is the last 3 series of this cycle. After that, June 7th at the Oval, World Test Championship final. So we'll be back with more updates on Sports Today. Press the like, comment and share button. We are also there on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram as well. Thank you.